Outstanding.
I was waiting for the. I got a feeling, but it's not coming.
Wait for the beat drop.
There you go.
So that's gonna be a good night, guys.
There you go.
Hey, everybody, how are you guys doing? Let's start with
Very
with the ladies. Very good.
Amazing. Yeah, doing incredible. It's a beautifully kind of snowy day here in Wales. Absolutely freezing, but it's still a beautiful week. Happy to be here.
And Chris, we are totally not envious of you being in Dubai right now.
I was going to say I have to almost pretend because I'm representing Tallinn in Estonia. I kind of have to pretend like it's -15 and freezing cold and snowy, but it's hard to do because I'm looking at the beach this way. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so let's get it going. My name is Toyer. I'm a productivity and performance coach for those of you who are watching, and I'm a co-author of the book Perform: The Unsexy Truth About Startup Success. Today we have a substitute of my co-author. So Cristobal Alonso, my co-author, is not able to join us, but we have a brilliant panel of people down here that will be here with us today. Chris Robbins, the CEO of Tele2 for Estonia. Viktoriya Vasilenko, the CEO and founder of Knowledge Gate Group. Radha Patel, a founder of Toga, health expert, nutritionist and pharmacist. So we're going to take some questions, so make sure to post your questions in the comments. And we're actually going to give away a couple of books. So yes, make sure to post your question. We'll try to take as many questions. But before we continue on the topic today, which is optimal energy, the O for the Perform methodology, I would like to take the time and to give a chance to our guests to actually give a bit of a context about who they are and where they come from, starting with Radha, in 47 seconds, who is Radha Patel and what do you do?
Whew, 47 seconds. I love how specific you are. So my name's Radha and I'm originally from Wales and I am a clinical pharmacist by day, but have also been a yoga teacher for 10 years now. I work as an Ayurvedic nutritionalist coach as well as speaking on different subjects, everything from sort of mental and physical health, as well as your spiritual health. And for me, it's a lot about trying to inspire people to really make realistic, empowering changes and looking at health as a way of sort of self-care, not just a way of sort of punishment and aesthetics. So yeah, really excited to talk about energy because from what I've seen, I think it's probably one of the biggest problems in the world alongside a couple of other words we won't mention beginning with C. But I think it's something that every person I know could really do with focusing on and is a real game changer.
Thank you, Radha. Viktoriya, your turn.
Sure. So my name is Viktoriya. I'm originally from California, but I've been living in Copenhagen now for the last 4-ish years. I'm the CEO and founder of Knowledge Gate Group. We're a company that works with life science companies and connect them to experts for micro-consultations. I'm also very excited to be here just because this is quite good timing on our side. We've been very, very busy and pulling some incredibly long days lately. So I'm very excited to hear different people's perspectives, especially you, Radha, with your background now, and how we can go about doing that the best way possible.
I love it. It's going to be interesting also to hear how you are managing your energy, putting in these long hours. Chris, your turn.
Very cool. Hi, guys. My name is Chris. Currently I'm in Estonia. Well, currently I'm in Dubai, but I'm working in Estonia. I'm Canadian, but I've lived and worked in Europe for about the last 20 years, 6, 7 countries, something like that. I've lost track after a while. One thing in every one of those countries, I've been mostly in telco. I have started my own business. I ran a tourism business that I started in France, in the French Alps, which was fantastic. Also did a telco startup in Canada, but that was like $1 billion investment, but it was a startup. It's the same thing. We started with 10 people and went to 300-400. So a little bit of experience. And I love coaching and mentoring startups as well. So I've got, that's kind of my experience on that side, but mostly telco across Europe.
And I just want to remind those of you who are tuning in right now live, you have a chance to ask a question. If you do, you'll be in a poll. We're going to give away a couple of books, Perform the Unsexy Truth About Startup Success. Chris, I want to start with you, actually, this discussion. You said you've been working, building startups. You are now the CEO of a telco. What are some of the challenges that you see when it comes to energy management? Do you think we prioritize enough this as part of the equation when we are managing our employees and running a team?
God, no. So I really appreciate it. This isn't a plug for your book, but it is really good to, you guys have the context around startups and the challenges. And it feels like what you guys are writing, and the little bit of involvement I've had with startups, it feels like you're moving so fast that you don't focus on those things. And that's understandable. And the reason we're talking about it is that you should be focusing on those things. I get that. But when I was reading through it, actually for larger organizations, it's the same challenge, but for a different reason. Large companies just don't somehow feel that they should be engaged with employees at that level, like doing mindfulness and focusing on personal growth for the employees. We've started that here, wherever we're talking, Estonia, a couple of years ago. But it's the same, like I said, it's the same impact in the organization. The people are burnt out. They don't have enough energy. There's not enough balance, but for different reasons. It just isn't top of mind in larger organizations. So I think it's a fantastic narrative, a fantastic dialogue for all size companies to be having. And truthfully, as I was telling you, a lot of the ideas you guys put forward in your book, and there's other models out there, I think are applicable across whether you're a small startup or you're mid-range or you're a large company. I think those things are very applicable. So we use them. Short answer.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the kind of words about the book as well. And yeah, I think a lot of these things are applicable. That the question is, are they really, in terms of do managers, do executives, senior executives actually prioritize the time to put those practices into action?
No, not at all. So again, we've been pushing this in the organization, and I don't want to say it's top down, but you really do need to be pushing people to do it. Strangely enough, I talk with new employees all the time, and I got a session this afternoon with it. And when you're talking to employees coming in, they love the idea of a company being engaged with their growth and their personal development. And to be fair, I mean, I'm a corporate guy. So at the end of the day, I believe and I know that a person that is focused on personal growth, that's happier in their life, that's more balanced in their life, is going to be more productive. So there's a benefit for the company. So it's not just we're doing this because, it's kumbaya and we all want to feel good about each other. It really is. There's a benefit for the people, obviously, and then there's also a benefit for the company. So I think it really is the next, even for large organizations, it's absolutely where the focus needs to be in terms of the personal development.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I want to actually give now the word to Viktoriya, who's been building her startup and is in a really interesting stage right now, putting in 15-hour days. And what is the reality, Viktoriya? Like, I mean, many startup founders out there right now, they probably share the same. It can relate to what you're going through. How can you actually prioritize and put energy and health and the well-being at the forefront? It's something that's really important when you actually have deadlines, you're launching products, you're hustling, you got to get things done. Like, what is the reality for you? What's the truth, the unsexy truth about that?
Yeah, the unsexy truth is that there's only so many hours in a day, and it doesn't matter how much sometimes you want to do something, there's still only X amount of hours in a day, and that's all you have to work with. So I think the way we're going about that is that when it's crunch time, so these last 2 weeks and until this Friday, it's crunch time, but then take 4-day weekends, and then when it's not crunch time, take the day off, take mental day off. We're not going to talk to each other. Let's just take some time apart. But then when it's not that, it's just go. And that's I think that's just really the unsexy truth about it.
So how do you survive these crazy periods?
Yeah. A combination of things. I was teasing before that it involves wine, which is true, but it also involves walks. And yeah, if there's a meeting I can take that's on the phone, I'll go walk around the very frozen lakes while I do it. Or yeah, just breathing. I've been going to see a really nice therapist that taught me how to breathe, that relaxes your body. So if I'm writing emails, I'll do those breathing exercises. Yeah. And then in the evenings, if we're working really late, then we'll all order food, have a few glasses of wine and just make the work as social and as relaxing as possible, because it is going to be stressful. So it's really just about balance and all sorts of things. Wine, but also walks, but also talking and breathing and all those things. Just little things throughout the day.
Right. Radha, you're a health expert, but you yourself are also doing a bunch of different things. Could you maybe share with us, and we can maybe get into this topic, and I'll be happy to hear, how do you guys, because I mean, at the end, I see 3 leaders who are leading other people as well, leading teams, but it comes down from leading by example in many ways. So I'm actually curious, how do you personally take care of your energy and make sure that you're at the top of your game, starting with you, Radha?
So I think it is very difficult to look at perfect picture and realistic, exactly like Viktoriya said. We all know, I think most of the world now are fairly well educated in terms of what's good for you. So I think the important thing when it comes to energy is looking at, okay, we know what to do, why is it not happening? And that's just life. So for me, it's been about being a lot kinder in terms of what I expect of myself, and working on, BJ Fogg's work, which is tiny habits. So rather than saying I'm going to do like an hour's yoga practice every day, which I'll be totally honest is unrealistic with work, it's just not going to happen, I'd say I'll do 10 minutes in the morning before work. And I try and hit that as my minimum target, maybe 5 days a week. And I started with just doing that maybe 2 days a week. So for me, I have a very clear morning ritual when my phone is on airplane mode. I will wake up first thing, go and brush my teeth. We have like a few Ayurvedic practices that help you feel more grounded. And then I do meditation, 10 minutes of yoga, and then I go to my phone, and I'll eventually let myself look at it before then. But we're living, especially in lockdown, in a world where our boundaries have been completely broken down. And I think actually for startups, those boundaries never really existed, because it has been a case of work from home. You guys are ready for this lockdown. You're like, we've been doing this. So it's really about how can you create those boundaries, and what are your non-negotiables. So for me, it's 15 minutes in nature, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of yoga, and reading a book, even just one page of a book. Because I know those are my non-negotiables that make me feel like I've done something for myself today. And then there's days you don't do it, and it's just having that, it's okay. And then there's days when you've got loads of time, like you said, when Viktoriya eventually gets her 4-day weekend, and you can do a bit more there. You can have a longer practice, you can go for a longer walk. And it's kind of, then you put stuff in the bank. And then on those days you have more time, you put more investment into your energy, so that when you need to push, you can push. So I think it's that flexibility and not being so rigid that we have to go to like a spin class every day at 6:30 a.m. because actually it can be more stressful than less. So yeah, small habits and that sort of sliding scale, depending on what deadlines you've got going on, being really okay with that.
Chris, I saw you unmuted yourself. I thought you want to add something on top.
Nope, just moving the cursor. I agree completely. No, I'll add that on top.
Beautiful. But actually, when you were speaking, right, I've been an entrepreneur for over like 9-10 years now myself, self-employed consultant. And I got to say, it's a negotiation with yourself, because you always have an excuse. When you're a founder, you're like, oh, yeah, but I have to finish this contract I can't go to the gym now. I'm so busy, right? It's an hour and a half. Are you kidding me? No way. I'll go tomorrow. Tomorrow there's something else. So unless you make it a non-negotiable and say, hey, look, you don't have to do an hour and a half. You can go for a run for 20 minutes. Or you can do, in the book, we share this exercise. It's widely known, Tabata exercise, which is coming from Japan, which is basically this 4-minute intense intervals where you're doing something for 20 seconds full speed, then you have a 10-second break. 20 seconds full speed, 10-second break. And this 4-minute exercise, by research, they say that it's sometimes giving you more in terms of benefits as opposed to 30-minute normal workout. So you can actually squeeze the time. There's a way to do it, so you don't have to think about, I have this hour and a half thing that's stressing me, I'm feeling tired, I have all these projects. So in a way, I mean, I don't know if I like the word hacking, but in a way it's like really hacking your own nervous system to prioritize the things that give you energy, connected to exercise, connected to nutrition, connected to excitement, relationship, your good sleep, your time for yourself, you time as we call it. So it really is about building these small habits and non-negotiables. I love that you say that, Rada. It's a really a great point.
I do think what Chris said as well there about really from a management point of view, you do have to convince yourself it's worth the investment. And that's why doing a little bit of research and understanding the productivity and financial benefits of doing those things for any startup, it is one of the priorities. That is what's driving you. You've got to make sure that you're growing. You've got to make sure that you're, achieving what you need to. So, I mean, if you look at what it's going to create in terms of output, you really look at it as a business investment, and you understand that you will get physical, financial, creative, and expansive return on it, then it doesn't become, a side hustle. It becomes part of your business plan. And I think that's really important for people to not just know like mentally, but really understand that and put it into practice.
Chris, what have been some of your personal habits, like some things like that you really actually manage to make them habits that help you to, it could be some boundaries of when you go to bed, or like you drink a certain amount of water. Like, what are some specific habits that you have that help you to be sharp and at the top of your energy?
Yeah, for sure. So I completely agree with Viktoriya on drinking lots of wine. That's super, super important. That's good. Seriously, I don't know whether it's one drove the other or vice versa, but I've got a fairly specific routine, if you will. I don't think of it as a routine. I'm not typically a routine person, but literally like 6-7 days a week, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I find that time for me, I'm super, super productive, but it's all for personal productivity, if you will. I never work at 4:30 in the morning, or not often at least. I have a husky, so I take him out for a walk or a run. I come home, I do meditation. I go to the gym. I'm maybe the exception versus the 2 or 3 minutes. For me, time in the gym is my mental time. It's the time I get to be mindful. It's the time I get to disconnect. I don't think about work. I don't think about problems. I don't think about anything. I'm just at the gym. So it's my mindfulness time, if you will. And what's interesting is with my leadership team, we just had this conversation about how they're doing kind of spiritually and emotionally, and do they have mindful times? And almost every one of them actually were either runners or they went to the gym, and it was the same thing. Their running time was their mindful time. It was their meditation time. So sometimes it's like, I know people that don't like exercise and they feel they have to, and then you need the 5-minute, hacking, as you will. But sometimes you have to look at, is it providing you a different type of benefit as well? So for me, I don't give up that hour and a half a day in the gym, just because that's part of my mindful time. And like I said, I got some that my colleagues have the same approach. I also have colleagues. I had one really, really good friend and mentor, used to run every day, an hour a day, but he used that time to think about work. That's when he solved most of his work problems, was he thought about it. So some of it, I think, is you can also think about when you're exercising, when you're doing whatever, how you can use that in a different way as well. So whether it's the mindfulness, or whether it's the work problems, or whether it's maybe the planning stuff that you guys talk about that you never find the time to do. So you can kind of, I know multitasking is a bad word, but you can kind of multitask to a certain extent when it comes to work. So I do that. I said, take the dog for a walk. I meditate every morning, at least 10, 15 minutes, actually almost every morning. Go to the gym. In the days before we were all locked away, was at the office, which is fantastic. And then I could get into the office. And now I just do it at home, and then essentially start the day. And that's truthfully, that's all there really is. Some of the stuff you guys talk about in the book as well around nutrition, for sure. You do also talk about, and I think it's fascinating, the whole idea that a support network, which is fantastic. I find for myself, I like having a support network that's a very different type of people. And I get more energy from different types of people and different perspectives, different industries, talking with guys like you. I get more from that, and I can, connect the dots better that way. So it's not so much about empathy and a network for empathy, but more about a network that's where I get my energy. I get my energy from new ideas and new people and new perspectives. So I really every day. I try and focus on either whether it's reading or talking to somebody or listening to something that I haven't ran across before. So I love trying those new experiences, and I get my energy from that for sure.
I love that, and I really want to emphasize on what you're saying about it's you have your own habits that or practices or routines that are connected to your own lifestyle, your own personal profile. Like whatever we write in the book or whatever you find in another book, these are some practices and ideas, but they don't work 100% for everybody. You need to try things out. Like these are some ideas that might be working really well, but it's up to you to actually make them habits and see what works with your lifestyle. Now a lot of people working from home, we have to put that into the equation. So those of you who are listening, just if you're on the beginning of your journey, there's no 100% truth out there. You gotta try things out. But when you make it a priority, you go out there, you experiment, and you just find what works for you. What really gives you energy. Something that gives me energy might not give energy to somebody else. By the way, guys, Chris, Viktoriya, Rada, I know I've been kind of moderating this discussion, but just make sure that you can also tune in. You don't have to wait for me to ask a question. So just unmute yourself. If you unmute yourself, I'll know that you want to add something on top, and I don't have to, strike you with questions. But I'll strike Viktoriya right now because we were speaking about something she shared with me. Viktoriya has been featured in the book, and I actually had a lot of things I wanted to feature from her in the book. Since she gave me an interview. One of the things is something that you're saying, Chris, and it's about having a support network. And correct me if I'm wrong, Viktoriya, but one thing that you shared with me was that you, on a weekly basis or something like that, you meet this close network of yours. And this is your stress management in a way. You talk about it and maybe have a glass of wine, but can you maybe share a little bit about this? Why did you start doing this, and how is that helping you to be, in a better energy state?
Yeah, so I'm a part of this program in Denmark called InnoFounder Graduate. It's my company was selected. It's recent graduates who have an idea. We apply, and then every year the government picks 10 or 15 of us, I think. And we were lucky enough to be chosen last year. And part of that is also we sit in an office together, and which means that we all started at the same time and we're all facing the same things at the same time. And for all of us, it's our very first time. And that has just been beyond beneficial, from like celebrations of when you send your first invoice and like the beginning stages, or when like really horrible things, if you have to fire your very first employee, or when something goes wrong, something goes right. We sit together all day, every day. But then beyond that, now that all of our teams have grown and it's not just us and we have our employees there, we still have like Friday bars or take walks together and just have these meetings where we discuss things, and it kind of takes the stress off of our shoulders and we share it together. It's very, very stressful, at least in the beginning was for me, to have people's livelihoods depend on you. And sometimes you still, at least I don't anymore, but in the beginning, I just felt like a dumb kid who it's just been working, and it was incredibly stressful, but to share that all together, I really can't emphasize enough of just how incredibly, incredibly helpful it is to be in a room with your peers and you feel a little less crazy and a little more normal as you have these talks.
Right. We have a question. Rada, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think what you've been saying with Viktoriya as well is really helpful, because the problem, and I think it is being rectified at the moment generally, is that people aren't very honest about the hard times. And although we are breaking through, chipping away on social media at being more honest, having a group of people where you can just be really honest about when you're having a really rubbish day is so helpful, because we all do put on a bit of a front. We all want to look like we're coping, but there is so much strength in being able to have, maybe not out to the world, maybe you don't have to post about it on your social media, but having a group of people where you can really be honest about that with. And we talk about energy here, and yeah, it's so important for us to look at how to create good, positive, optimal energy. But it's also really important for us to be okay when we don't have that energy, and know how to adapt to that, and to be okay with having a rest day, to be okay with not having the best day ever every day, because otherwise we have a ridiculously high expectation that we have to be at 100% every single day. And that's not what human beings are made for. We're meant to be a nice, gentle wave. So I think, like you said, Viktoriya, having that support group and people where you just say, yeah, you know what? I'm exhausted. I haven't slept for days and I could just really do with a holiday to Dubai. Let's go see Chris.
Yeah, and if I can just add on top of that, it's these moments of vulnerability, of when you share of how hard or difficult a certain day or a certain period of time is, that has always been so beneficial to me. As soon as you sit down and you start being honest with the people around you. There was one time that I had a sales meeting and we just took like the first 15 minutes to talk about things are really hard right now. And I've been going really, really well. But we just kind of took a moment. We're just human with each other and we're very honest with each other. And that was, yeah, I get a little emotional when I think about it, but it was really, really important and special.
Yeah, and thank you, ladies. Thank you for actually sharing this. I think, especially we guys, I think everybody, but we guys need a lot to learn in terms of sharing. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of founders, and I think one of the challenges comes with the fact that when you're the founder, when you're the CEO, the leader, there's this part of you that doesn't want to look weak, right? And that's why it's like, hey, I'm the leader. I can't show vulnerability because people would think I'm weak and I'm the leader and I have the responsibility to lead them. I think there's this kind of a gray area where you can still be vulnerable and share that you're not at your best, but it doesn't have to come from a place of weakness. It's actually strength. If you take it from a place of strength and say, hey guys, I'm feeling really, my energy is down. I can't really do anything at the moment. Can you take over this responsibility? Can you take this? I'll be back in a couple of days and I'll be, just still being vulnerable, still sharing, but not sharing as from a place of a victim, because then that becomes like a challenge. But having a support group, and sometimes even it's kind of difficult, right? I mean, sometimes it's difficult to share with your team, some of the things. So that's why it's important to have some kind of a group, a support group, a mastermind group, a strong group of friends which are on the same journey, be it entrepreneurs or business leaders, which you can go to and you can openly just say, hey, guys, I'm struggling with this. I have no idea what I do. What do you think? Am I doing the right thing? And then 3 other people will say, oh, I had the same challenge. And the first thing is for you to realize, I'm not crazy. Everybody's going through the same challenges. But if we don't talk about it, we kind of make it unique. It's like, oh, I'm the only one on this planet that's struggling with this. And it becomes even a bigger thing. So I think it's very important to be able to share vulnerability, especially in 2020, 2021, in these crazy times where we've been exposed to conditions which we've never seen before, especially when it comes to social interactions. We're social animals. Now, all of a sudden, everybody, except if you're in Dubai, everybody is locked home, and you don't see your colleague by the coffee machine to share a joke and to say something. You don't. You need to find other ways to make it up for these missed social interactions, at least from my perspective, my experience. So really, really important topic. Thank you so much, ladies. And I wanna post here a question that's coming from Eric Noor, a good friend of Rada, actually knows him personally. He's based in Estonia, and he's saying, great to see such a panel. Question, if you get mindfulness time during training, I guess this is a question to you, Chris, then how does one correlate with focusing on your activity? If you focus on your work issues when training, then your training is less valuable or not?
So I think there's different opinions. For me, I completely agree. So my mindfulness is when I'm working out, I'm working out. I don't think about work. when I'm running, if I go running, I don't think about work. I think about running, and it's very calming. So I agree with you. However, I do have friends that manage to do both of those things at the same time. So I honestly, I don't know. I don't have the personal experience. Like I said, my experience is you need to be mindful for that thing you're doing, the training, the running, the whatever else. But again, I've got friends that have said just the opposite. So I guess, as we were saying, not everything works for everybody. So some of those things you need to, I think if anything, the biggest learning I would have would be, some level of self-awareness. So I love the idea of sharing and bouncing things off of other people, but I find people at all ages, all levels, don't have enough self-awareness. So they don't really know what works for them, and they don't spend enough time even thinking about these types of things. So, as we were saying, there's some good models and some good frameworks out there, but I think the starting point is, start with what works for you and see what you can do from that perspective. So if running gives you that hour to think about, plans for next year or the 3 years later or 5 years later, fantastic. If that's your time for meditation, like it is for me, or mindfulness, like it is for me, then that's what it is. As long as you're practicing those habits and it works, keep doing it. Doesn't really matter what anybody else says.
And we've interviewed for the book over 50 people, including Rada and Viktoriya, asking for different strategies, ideas, tools that each of them is using in the different areas of the Perform methodology. And one thing that was coming back again and again when we talk about energy is a high percentage of the people we interviewed were sharing that they have some sort of a space for themselves. We call it in the book you time. You can call it whatever you want, but they found really successful for also their efficiency to create a space, be it early in the morning, like a morning routine, or in the weekend or in the evening, a space where they don't have to do anything, but it's a space for themselves. And people have different practices, journaling, meditation, some sort of breathing techniques. So I really want to talk a little bit about that. How is it working for you guys? Do you intentionally create a space for yourself, you time on a consistent basis, and what specific practices have been working for you in that perspective?
I can start. So I have switched over just something small. So we're still going into the office just because we're such a small team and so spread out. So we've been lucky enough to continue to do that. But I stopped biking to work, so it'll take longer. So I can just walk by myself for a second because my partner is working from home. So someone's always there, and we have a quite small place. And with the team, I have to do that. So it's literally my only time of the day where I'm just by myself, and it's so important. So just trying to, so I just put on some like classical music and I just completely zone out. Honestly, I don't even remember the walk, like when I leave the house and when I arrive, like I'm fully zoned out and just taking that. And I think it's like the only time my brain gets a proper break, that it actually turns off, and then I assume it's some form of meditation as well, I think, when you think about it. But the 30-minute walk every day is just
So I think one thing that I've started doing this year, because I've always had, pretty much since I was 15, I've had a daily practice where I'd either light a diva or a candle, and I just do either some prayers, some meditation, and that's coming from my sort of Hindu background as well. So it's always been sort of something that my parents have brought me up with as well. But in the last few years, it's definitely been, I've made it my own. And now what I've started doing is working each morning in about 15-20 minutes every morning, where I'll light a candle and I have like a nice bell, get all zen. And then each day of the week, I have a different focus point. So I found it a bit stressful to think about my whole life and putting, positive energy or creating a really beautiful design for every area. So I have one day of the week that I focus on my health. I have one day that I focus on relationships, one day that I focus on finance. And the morning practice for me is taking check and being really grateful, like pushing myself into that gratitude mindset of everything I have, a thought about where I want to go. And then what's been a big game changer is then dedicating a prayer or dedicating a prayer to someone else in that area. So I know in COVID, a few people I know have become quite ill. So I have made sure I dedicated a prayer towards them in the morning. And just that little practice has completely switched my mind around. You wake up and you've had weird dreams and you're in a really weird mood and you just don't feel quite yourself. As soon as I do that and I just take stock of what I have and for a second get out of myself and into someone else and actually putting something towards helping someone, even if it's only a thought, that for me has pretty much 9 times out of 10 pulled me into a positive mindset. And then by the end of the week, I feel like I've had a moment of reflection for every area of my life and a moment of prayer for a few people. And that's been, I think, a really powerful practice for me.
Chris, you don't want to share?
No, for sure. I was just trying to figure out where my cursor is at the moment. Now it's all good. You completely forget how to use a computer. It's fascinating. Actually, I really liked what Rado was saying. I was trying to figure out where I can make notes. It was too funny. I really like that approach. That's very, very cool. For me, as I was saying, I mean, my me time is the mornings. I now realize it's lucky. I didn't maybe 5 years ago. My wife is not a morning person. So she and my son, we have a 4-year-old son. He's more like her. He likes to sleep in. So it's fantastic because whether it's a work day or a weekend or whatever, essentially that time from 4:30 in the morning until like 8 is me. So I get to go with my dog. I get to work out. I get to do meditation. So I've actually got lots of me time. It works out pretty well, that perspective. But I like this idea of dedicating a day to different things. That's very, very cool. And I do gratitude sessions with my leadership team. I try to teach them how to, so every meeting we have together, we start off with what we're grateful for, which some people really get, some people not as much. It's always lots of fun. And one of the things we're talking about is trying to get people to spend more time on themselves and more me time. And again, some people get it and some people are like, yeah, no. So there's a little bit more of a struggle. And I also find that actually trying to help other people that maybe don't get it and don't even maybe see the benefit, that practice, if you will, you learn so much from it that you can use yourself. So that almost trying to teach it, you learn way more about it. So I know when I'm thinking of one person in particular, I'm not going to say his name, but try to get him to devote more me time and more focus on himself. I think we'll do a world of good. But talking to him about it, it magnifies the importance for you. So when you talk through it. So I find that really useful as well.
So Chris, what do you think was working like now that we're talking about inspiring others to prioritize those things? Like, is it more about sharing, I did this and it was really good and I'm full of energy, or it's more like what do you think works for inspiring your team to actually start building those habits?
You know what, when it gets into stuff like this, I find it very much comes from a coaching style of leadership. So you need different leadership styles for different situations, different contexts, but you also need it for different people. So like I said, some people, just they get it. So it's not really that much trouble. And you can actually, then it's almost more of a dialogue. You're not really trying to convince them or sell them on the idea. It's more of that dialogue about, what you're doing and what works and not works and those things. But it's really individual. So some people, the stressing on the business benefits, you're going to be more productive. You'll get more done, by focusing this and doing this and going through the stats and the proofs and all the rest of the stuff. That helps. So I've got a couple of people like that that I've coached before in the past. Strangely enough, an angle that I've taken a few times is people, if they're unhappy, if they're maybe not living their values, they're not even clear what their values are, if they're stressed, if they're close to burnout, so they feel like something's not working, and you're talking about it with them in a work context, but for sure those same issues are showing up in their personal life. So what I've done with some people is actually coach them to be more open and to think about more of those things from a personal perspective, because they feel less threatened than they have to be the leader at work. And, I'm the manager and I need to be strong and everything else. So I've done, for example, active listening skills. I've had people try that out at home with their spouses and their significant others first, because they feel more comfortable with that kind of vulnerability and that kind of new approach than they do with their work colleagues. And then once they become more comfortable with it at home, literally, they bring it to work and it works. It can kind of convinces them in a ass backwards kind of way, which is super interesting. I've even had, I literally remember when I was in Lithuania, I had the wife of one of the guys that I was trying to coach on more active listening skills, because he was a terrible listener, although a fairly senior manager. And she came and thanked me at one of our annual events afterwards because it worked so well. So I was like, that alone, I could have considered my career successful at that point. That was all I needed. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. Even if his performance didn't improve, doesn't matter. Like you know, the wife is happy. Everybody.
Exactly. It's fantastic. And he did literally improve a lot, but he was one of these guys that was brought up kind of more old school and didn't feel like he could share the vulnerability and, you know, and check in with people. It was more telling type of management style, not so much listening type of management style. And he really didn't. I tried for a while trying to get him to feel comfortable acting that way and in a work environment, and it worked much better just to kind of flip it around and start from the personal side. So everybody's different.
Yeah, and every culture is different. I used to work in a small company several years ago, and we had this little practice that we'll go for a run together. Every few days, we'll just, in the afternoon, everybody bring in clothes. We had a shower in the office, so we just go for a run. Nice weather outside. We come back, you know, everybody's high-fiving, like we have some certain kilometers we have to make, right? And then we come back, everybody takes a shower, and we start working again. And it was also a little bit of this team building kind of thing. And I can see many companies have been trying to implement some sort of 10,000 feet challenge a day, like doing something either together or setting up some sort of goals that are connecting to their well-being. So I'm curious if you guys have seen any similar practices for any of the energy areas, and any successful ideas, something practical that you can maybe share with the audience.
So this is a little bit different, and maybe it's the California in me, because we're big believers in therapy. But I believe it's crucial for personal mental well-being, but also for a team. We're actually just going to be starting this next month. We're going to have our founding team is going to have a therapist come work with us every 3 weeks or so to work out communication kinks, because now it's not just going to be us, we're growing, and it's important that we stay kind of like on the same page for things, but away from just professionally speaking. I think it's going to be, really, really great for your personal life as well, because you learn a lot in therapy. I don't know if anyone has gone, highly recommended. So we're going to start doing like group therapy essentially at work.
No one's got a comment on that? Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think that's really good. It ties into what we were saying about being very vulnerable. And like what Chris said, sometimes it's difficult to be vulnerable with people you're the boss of, or you're, subordinate of, whatever situation it is. So I think that's a lovely way of giving people permission to really talk openly.
Yeah, no, for sure. Actually, for about the last, I'd say 15 years in business, I talk with a lot of students, and almost any students, the questions you get is, how can you be successful in business? It's an interesting question. Different phrase, different ways. But I've said for the last 15 years, my two things are communication and psychology. You don't need to learn finance. You don't need to know marketing and sales and all the rest of the crap, because essentially all of those things come from communication and psychology. So I think any business anywhere, the more you could focus on psychology, knowing yourself, knowing the others, understanding how people's brains work, you can be the smartest person on the planet with a brilliant idea. If you can't communicate it to somebody, it's crap. If you can't motivate other people to get behind it, it doesn't work. So to me, communication psychology is super, super important. So anytime I hear about companies prioritizing psychology, whether it's group psychology or therapy and whatever, I think that's just a fantastic place to invest as a company. It just makes sense.
Yeah, it really, when you're speaking about that, I'm thinking about the term that was termed by, I think it was Carol Dweck, growth mindset. Like if you manage to build this growth mindset and you surround yourself in your team with people who have this growth mindset, who are always willing to challenge the status quo, who is always excited and striving to learn, to get better, to listen to all the best podcasts, read the best business books, meditate, journal, work on themselves, then, I mean, of course, there's probabilities and so on, but still your chances of making it are much higher if you have such a team. And you as a leader, if you actually lead by example, doing all these things, again, the unsexy things that you have to do every day, even in the days that you don't feel like it, but these are the days that make the difference and kind of lead the rest of it. And I want to actually talk a little bit about nutrition as well, and food, rather starting with yourself, because sometimes I would neglect food, right? Let's go for the fasting. I don't have time now, and only this time we get this thing. But rather, if you can maybe speak a little bit about the effect food has on us, and why should we be very conscious about what we put into our bodies?
So it is my favorite subject, I think, alongside, food and sleep are like my two pet subjects. So I have studied Ayurvedic nutrition, which is sort of Eastern medicine. And the whole principle there is, I think there's a quote by Hippocrates, which is, let food be thy medicine, or medicine will be thy food. So I also work as a pharmacist, so I've got a weird sort of balance there when it comes to trying to stop people getting to the point where they have to come see me in a clinical setting. And what the principles of Ayurveda share is that, firstly, know that every single person is individual. And I think everyone here has shared that today. And knowing that, there's a fad diet, or, someone might say keto is the way, or the raw food diet, or, paleo or vegan, whatever it is, we are all so individual that I really do not believe there is a right and a wrong. There is knowing thyself and really being intuitive with how you feel when you eat. And then also just the basic understanding of everything you put into your mouth literally becomes you. It becomes your cells. It becomes, part of how your neurons are going to develop. It literally is feeding every single part of you. And having that understanding that, within there are sort of different stages of digestion in Ayurveda, and the different ways it goes through all of the tissues, whether it's going through the mental level, the physical level. But there is a deep understanding that food is one of the key areas where you can transform your life. And I think with startups, with founders, with anyone who is very busy and very driven, food becomes, I think, either something that is very controlled, if you're someone who likes to really control things, and it becomes very strict, or it becomes something you don't think about because you don't see it as a priority. And there's this beautiful middle way where if you can create a relationship with food that is really nurturing, and firstly know that, be intuitive with what you're eating. All the standard things about organic, whole food, they matter. But one of the biggest things is how you feel when you eat. Are you sitting down in front of a screen, or are you going to sit and just stare out the window for a few minutes? Are you with a team of people and sharing laughter, a glass of wine, and creating a beautiful, harmonious atmosphere? Because on a sort of molecular level, on a mental level, that changes the way our body will digest that food. If you're in your fight or flight, all your circulation's rushed away from your digestive system. You can't break down that food properly, and you're not going to absorb the benefit from it. And you look at sort of studies where they've looked at some of the countries like France, where they have lots of cheese and bread, and they think, why are their, cholesterol levels not higher and sort of cardiovascular problems not higher? And it's because of this relationship with food as well. It's about taking time to eat. It's about enjoying your food. And I mean, there's so much to go into with diet, but I think one of the key things that each one of us can do is to try and carve out that moment with our food like a meditation practice, and make it something where we're mindful of what we're eating. We don't have to revolutionize, having the perfect healthy diet straight away. But starting from today and now, you can change the way you eat. You can change the way you're aware of what you're eating. And yeah, I think that can be really powerful. I mean, I could talk for like months about food. I'm a big fan. But I encourage everyone to fall in love with their nutrition, because it is building who you are, and it will change the way you think, the way you feel, and how long you live. So worth the investment.
I love what you're saying. It's not just about what you eat, but how you eat it. because a lot of times as a founder, as an ambitious business leader, you just want to put it in the body quickly, get back to your tasks. It just becomes like a vicious habit instead of scheduling time in which you just fully focus on the food. Maybe you're having a lunch with somebody else, and now obviously now a lot of people working from home, so that might be a bit of a challenge unless you do it on Zoom or something else, or with people around you at home. But just being fully present, and this is one of the main messages of the book in general. It's about how can you create a workload where whatever you do, you're to the most extent fully focused and present in this one thing you're doing, be it working on the budget or having a break and going for a walk and listening to this new podcast. But like being fully in one place, fully present, and then you're more productive. Then you're more worry less because you have space. So I love that, and I need to take a note because I think I have what to do with my nutrition habits for sure. Cool. We're getting somewhere. Sleep, guys. We cannot not mention sleep. And I know, Rada, this is your second best topic. But in many ways, like with many founders I speak to, there's still, I see they don't have a very positive and healthy relationship with sleep either. It's kind of like, to some extent, some of them, especially in New Europe, like Eastern, Central Europe, is like, yeah, I have to work hard. Like if I have time to sleep, that's fine. But like they'll go to bed late in the evening, wake up early. And it's not just about the quantity of the sleep. Like it's not the amount of sleep. It's also about the quality of the sleep. So let's maybe chat a little bit about that, because sleep has a huge effect on the way we feel, the way we do, the way we perform. What can we do to improve our sleep quality? Some simple ideas, mindset shifts, and maybe tips. Whoever wants to speak, unmute yourself.
So the best decision I've made is to stop bringing my phone into the bedroom at all. I got like an old-fashioned manual alarm clock now. It was very, very smart decision, because I used to just wake up and then quick turn off the alarm on the phone and then just start. Like I would wake up by going through emails and stuff like that. Yes, that is no longer, and it's been a very, very good decision to do. And also like unplugging from, sometimes it's more realistic than not, but at least the majority of the time, like go away from my computer and all screens, so at least like half an hour before going to bed. I think that's not mind-breaking news to anyone, but until I actually implemented it, you see a very significant change.
I think I was listening to a really interesting podcast on sleep the other day, and they talked about how when a child's going to sleep, you don't just stick them in bed and expect them to fall asleep. You read them a bedtime story, you'll give them a bath. If they're really little, they might have some milk. There's this whole principle of allowing a child to go from to and actually putting them in that space. And we're pretty much the same as adults. And we have this strange expectation that once we get into bed, when we've been go all day, we're just going to drop off. And some people some people do drop off suddenly, but I think that's more a sign of extreme exhaustion actually than necessarily a very good sleep routine. But for me, it's been having that bedtime routine and, treat my inner child with care. So I know, same as Viktoriya, I try and switch off like technology at least half an hour to an hour before bed. And then I have a nice warm shower or warm bath, because that helps your internal body temperature drop, even though it's slightly counterintuitive, which is really important for helping you to sleep. And then again, I do prayers or meditation. I do journaling, just to do like a mind dump of anything that's worrying me and any things that I need to do. Because otherwise you're sitting in bed, you're like, oh my God, I've got to remember to do this tomorrow. And that stops you going into a full relaxation state. And then just the little things like not eating for 2 hours before you go to bed as well. Because again, if you eat, all the blood goes to the center of the body, your core temperature can't drop the necessary 1 or 2 degrees that it needs to for you to drop off. And then I think no blue light, having my little blue light glasses on if I am working late on a screen, trying to not watch anything violent on TV, like reading nice, happy books before I go to bed. Because like Stoyan said, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. And all of the things like, sadly, a nightcap before bed, although I think is absolutely necessary sometimes, that can actually affect the quality of your sleep. So although you're getting the hours in sometimes, the actual depth of the sleep and the quality is not there. And, the way you sleep affects the way you're able to relate to people. Because if you don't get a certain amount of sleep, you actually lose the ability to read people's emotions and actually be able to interact with people. And it, dulls your creativity. It dulls your ability to deal with stress. It's literally like, I think, the panacea for everyone to start with. I think if there's one place everyone should start, it should be sleep, and then diet, exercise. So yeah, for me, it's my bedtime routine, sometimes a nighttime story if I'm listening to like a sleep story as I go to sleep. But that's been really, really healing for me, and yeah, absolutely changes your life when you had a good night's sleep.
Absolutely agree. Sleep is the most important for me. And I think it's also about for everyone to have a understanding, self-awareness about how do they sleep best? What are the specifics about it? Like I personally need to go to bed 9:30 or 10. That's the best optimal time for me to go to bed. And then I wake up around 5:30, 6, and I'm sharp the whole day. If I go to bed after 12, for example, whatever hours I sleep, I'm not going to be rested. I've tried many different processes and procedures, but for me, it really works this way. And understanding your rhythm, not just about sleep, but your rhythm during the day as well. Like, how do I want to manage my energy and workload? Like, when am I the most energetic, full of energy, creative? Can I have some activities and tasks that I approach and address in the times that I'm most creative? Be it for me, that's in the morning, and that's after 6 p.m. weirdly. So it's like afternoon. I would rather have some calls where I'm very extroverted, so I like to talk to some people, have some meetings, so I can regain a little bit of energy from the introverted people who probably lose a little bit. But then I'm coming back afterwards, and I can do this creative, maybe write a copy or like do something else. So really, energy management is also coming a lot down to self-awareness and communication with your team, with your boss, with your coworkers. What is it? What is your rhythm? Because we're not the same. Everybody's different, and having conversations and really understanding your team. One person from my team, she's based in Toronto. She's very, introverted. She's not an early bird. When she kind of, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., she's kind of getting into speed, and then she's a machine. But like, if we have to have a morning meeting, like 8 a.m. for her, you just see a grumpy cat, right? Like, you don't want to get her in the morning meeting. If you're listening, and probably she will. I love you. You're amazing. But like, we have to know who we work with and who we are, right? So, yeah. Anyway, guys, we're running close to an hour, and it's been such a pleasure having you all. But I think it's about time to wrap it up. And obviously, if those of you are having any questions from the audience, you can still post them in the comments, and hopefully we can look through them afterwards. But just to wrap up this discussion, let's maybe have a quick round. And I want to, guys, ask you. Thank you for being so generous to share insights, share ideas. I want to ask you to, first of all, share with the audience, where could people find you and the brand that you're representing eventually? And of course, a little bit of a selfish ask, why should people get a copy of our book, Perform the Unsexy Truth About Startup Success? So let's start maybe with you, Chris. Yes. For sure.
So yeah, people can get hold of me. LinkedIn is the easiest thing. So just Chris Robinson, and you can pick anything, Estonia, Prague, anything in Europe, and you're bound to find me close to the the search terms. And I'd be happy to connect with people. I always offer that. So I enjoy talking to people. I'm like you. I get my energy from talking with people. I think the book is fantastic. Like I told you guys, and I'm not just plugging the book. for somebody, if the startups, if the founders and the people involved haven't addressed any of these things, they haven't spent time talking about these things and thinking about these things, I think the book is really, really fundamental. It's like really good basic building blocks. As we said, everybody's different and there's different models out there and there's other things. But if you haven't spent any time, then the book just really gives some really clear, good, concrete suggestions that I think it would be like super smart just to do that. So you don't even have to spend a lot of time doing a bunch of research, just follow that. And I think the book from that perspective is really, really good as kind of like the starter for these types of topics and conversations. So, and I told you, I mean, for my company, I ordered like 10 more copies and I've already distributed it to everybody because I think there's tons of learnings in there for any size of company. So.
Which we are very grateful about. Thank you so much for the feedback, Chris, and obviously for spreading the book towards your team. So much appreciated. Viktoriya.
Yes, so you can also find me on LinkedIn, Viktoriya Vasilenko. It's a very unique name in Denmark, so I am also quite easy to find. And you can learn about KnowledgeGate just on our website, knowledgegategroup.com. I think beyond first thing that comes into mind is I learned so many good tips on time management, which I think is something that I struggle with quite a bit, and I think a lot of us do when we have so many things on our plates. But there's such lovely time management techniques in the book, and so that's the first one to come to mind. But there's also just really funny stories, interesting stories. It was a really good read. It wasn't something that I had to force myself through at all. It was actually, I laughed, I learned. It was good.
Thank you, Viktoriya. Rada, go ahead.
Drop the mic there. Mic drop. Completely accidental. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can find me on my Toga Online page, which I do use time to time, and there are some of the articles and links onto further things there. But I also teach online as a yoga teacher and doing some sort of little speaking bits on the Drew Yoga Online studio. So you can check that out as well. And I think what Viktoriya said earlier about having that shared group of people that you can kind of connect with, that's a reason to get the book, because actually if you don't have the luxury of having a really lovely network or a team yet, and you're working on that, then this is a way for you to feel like you're part of something. And the book can be like your companion for you to say, oh my God, okay, yeah, someone else has gone through it. And actually, here are some potential solutions that I can try. And like Stone said, you know, it might not be, this is exactly the one for me, but it gives you things that you can experiment with. So I think it's, you know, like a lot of us in lockdown, books can sometimes be a really strong companion. So yeah, thank you so much, Dorian, for all of the effort and energy that you went to in creating it. It's really amazing.
Oh, it's really a pleasure. Thank you so much, guys, for the kind words. And one of the things I'm most excited about, apart from, you know, all the insights in the book from the 50 plus interviews we did and, you know, all the tools that we created there, like it's more like a bird's eye view of what you can potentially work on, and then you kind of assess and address the areas that might help you most. But apart from that, I'm most excited about creating this community. It really is about creating this community of people like yourself. We're, you know, hey, let's share. Let's share success practices. Let's support each other. Like, let's see where it goes. Right now, we have a private Facebook group with close to now 300 people. If anybody's interested, post in the comments, and we'll send you a link to get you into the group where people are sharing strategies. People are like just really helpful. But it's really, for me, this biggest thing is let's create a community where it's all about growth mindset people from this side of the world. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff happening in San Fran and so on, but we are in Europe. We are in so-called New Europe, and things here work a little differently. So it's a small community, right? Like it's not a huge population and so on. So why not support each other? Why not come together and try to thrive together? So that's the main message for me. And I'm super excited seeing people like yourself. Very grateful for having you coming in with an open mind, sharing all your learnings, no BS, just like what things are. And hopefully that's going to grow into something big. So yeah, let's build, let's create, let's make things happen. But first of all, be safe. Oh, go ahead, guys. I saw everybody was
No, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. So it was great chatting with you guys, meeting with you guys.
Really lovely to see you all.
Yeah, it was a good chat.
Thanks, guys. All right. So thanks everybody for listening, and see you again at the next episode of the Perform Panels. Make sure to drop your name if you want to be included in the Facebook group. And if you want to get a copy of the book, you can go to theperformbook.com. And right now it's still on a discount. So yeah, you might get yourself a digital or pre-order a printed copy. So thank
Very
you all.
cool.
And see you
Thanks,
next time.
guys.
See ya.
Ciao, ciao.